Hey, roll tape.
Rolling.
The April 27th meeting of the Long Hill Planning Board is called to order at 7:32. Would you read the announcements, please?
Absolutely. Number one, call to order and statement of compliance. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting a copy of the public meeting dates on the municipal bulletin board and website, by sending a copy to the Echo Sentinel newspaper, and by filing a copy with the municipal clerk. Number two, standard board procedures. Any hearing conducted by the board is a quasi judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Number three, meeting cutoff. Announcement is made that as a matter of procedure, it is the intention of the planning board not to continue any matter past 10:30 p.m. at any regular or special meeting of the board unless a motion is passed by the members then present to extend the meeting to a later specified cutoff time. Number four, the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Coming right up. Okay.
I need a flag. Do we have a flag?
I just posted. I should be sharing. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Yes.
I pledge allegiance to the
I
flag
just see the flag of the United States of America,
America,
the republic
the Republic for
one
which
nation,
it stands,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice
and
for all.
justice for all.
Okay. Now take the roll.
Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Ray.
Present.
Committeeman Verleza appears to be currently absent. Ms. Still?
Here.
Mr. Hands is excused tonight. Mr. Malinowski?
Here.
Mr. File?
Here.
Mr. Richardson?
Here.
Vice Chairman Jones?
Present.
Chairman Sandow?
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum. And might I add, Mr. Chairman, you might want to introduce the engineer tonight, standing in for Mr. Paul Ferrero for the application.
All right. Standing in for Mr. Ferrero as the board engineer is Rich.
Here.
Yep, here, Rich Kwame is
And,
my last name.
and Kwame. And at this point, let's get him sworn in, Yolanta.
I'm trying to unmute myself. Can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give with regard to this application will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Yep.
And let the record show that the Committeeman Verleza has joined the meeting.
In name only. Oh, there he is. All right. At this point, we are going to have the hearing for Elite Properties on Valley Road. The hearing will extend until 10:15, at which point we will adjourn the hearing and continue for the last 15 minutes of the meeting with a few small items of board business. I'd also like to plan in advance to take a break at about 9 o'clock, and Mr. Jones will remind me of that, please. All right, Mr. Roth.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Oh, I'm sorry. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Derek Orth from Inglesino, Webster, Wichiscala, and Taylor. I represent the applicant before the board this evening, Elite at Long Hill LLC. This is a continuation of a hearing that was initially conducted about a month ago. At that hearing, Mr. Chairman, we presented our civil plans for a 62-unit inclusionary luxury development on certain property located at 621 Valley Road. That's identified as block 10801, lot 3 on Long Hill's official tax map. The property is located in the township's RMF-4 multifamily residential zone. And as I previously described during the prior meeting, this is one of the sites that was included in the Township of Long Hill's Housing Element and Fair Share Plan and Mount Laurel Affordable Housing Settlement Agreement. So at that prior meeting, Mr. Chairman, we walked through our civil testimony. We described stormwater.
Excuse me for a second. Liz,
Sir.
are you raising your hand or are you just waving at the camera? Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr.
He's
Roth.
muted.
Not a problem. So we walked through our civil set. We described our stormwater management plan. At that meeting, Mr. Chairman, we indicated that we had also submitted an outside agency application to the DEP for our freshwater wetlands permitting. It was my hope that prior to this meeting, we would have our outside agency approvals in hand, but we do not have them as of yet. So we have not yet resubmitted revised civil plans indicating full compliance with our DEP permits. It's my hope that we will have that in hand for the board's next meeting in May. And at the end of this meeting, or when we finish up our presentation tonight, we can talk about some scheduling items I wanted to bring to the board's attention. Also, as a matter of housekeeping, Mr. Chairman, I had indicated at the last hearing, I was going to request the board's decision on the potential bulk variance items that were up in the air, which is we had two structures or equipments located in the front yard of the building, one being a water utility hot box and the other being a transformer. I have every indication from our civil engineer that we'll be able to provide some additional screening for those two equipment structures. But at this point, since we're not going to be rolling out our revised civil plans, I think it would be best to defer the question of the variance until we come in with a revised civil set so that I can present something to the board for review. So at this point, Mr. Chairman, we are going to proceed with the testimony of our architect, John Sirocco. And with the board's pleasure, I'd like to have him sworn in to testify.
So be it.
Okay, can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give with regard to this application will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Can you please state your name for the record and spell your last name?
It's John Sirocco, S-A-R-A-C-C-O.
Thank you.
And John, why don't you start off by presenting the board with an overview of your qualifications and paying particular attention to any licenses that you have which are in good effect.
Sure. I graduated from Rensselaer Polytechnic in 1981. I received my licenses in New York and New Jersey, 1985, 1986. I've been practicing since then, actively since then, and I've been in front of many boards throughout New Jersey over the last 20 years. Locally, Warren, Bedminster, and other towns in the area. Yeah.
Thanks, John. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to proffer Mr. Sirocco as my expert in the field of architecture.
I have no objection. Does anybody on the board have an objection? I have one question for Mr. Sirocco before we go on. I missed the university you graduated from.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. or better
Rensselaer,
known as RPI.
yes, yes. Now you and I have Liz outnumbered.
Okay, you're a
Because-
graduate.
Because Liz comes from that Boston pretend engineering school.
Okay, it's big engineering school up at RPI. Little architecture department, strong engineering school.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sirocco, did you prepare a architectural set of plans for this application?
Yes, I have.
And you revised them at one point, correct?
Yes, I have.
And the last set was dated February 5th, 2021, correct?
Yes.
Why don't you start off by walking the board through those plans and describe exactly what we're proposing to build here?
Sure. So this is a
Before you get going, John, Ms. Maziarz, I think this would be Exhibit A3. John, why don't you describe the date
I
of this?
believe you're correct. Yes.
Thank you. Why don't you describe the date of this rendering so the board attorney can mark it?
Sure. These are the drawings that were submitted on February 5th, 2021, and this particular drawing is PB 100.
I'm sorry, Mr. Sirocco, Mr. Orth. I believe it's already marked as Exhibit A2, Architectural Drawing 020521.
Okay, very
A3
good.
is the Long Hill Settlement Agreement.
Oh, very good. All right, so we'll refer to this back as A2 then
Okay.
for purposes of the record. Thank you.
Mr. Bunch.
Okay, John, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So this is a view of the building as you would be driving down the entrance driveway off of Valley Road, and we're looking into the courtyard here, the center courtyard. Just if you don't mind, if I just refer back to the site plan, this is Dynamics site plan that was presented last month, just to refresh everyone's understanding of the site. We're coming off of Valley Road here. We have some visitor parking off of Valley Road. Dynamic did a wonderful, nice curved driveway, soft curved driveway that leads us right into a very, very nicely landscaped courtyard, a turnaround. And the entrance to our building is right at the end of this courtyard. And the garage entrance is off this turnaround. And I'll show you more detail right on this side of the courtyard. So getting back to the balcony, to the rendering. So this is the view at the curve of the driveway. We see the garage doors tucked underneath these bay windows here. This is the main entrance to the building at the far end of the courtyard. We framed this courtyard with two nice masonry stone and brick piers with some copper accent and a gable roof. And it's a very lively courtyard. We have nice balconies overlooking the courtyard, very nicely landscaped. Since I'm on this drawing, let me just go through the unit counts. We have 53 market rate units, 13 one bedrooms, 35 two bedrooms, 5 3 bedrooms. On the affordable end, we have 9 affordables, one bedroom, 6 two bedrooms, and 2 3 bedrooms, meeting our affordable obligations. And in the parking garage in this entrance here, we have 77 cars parked. Just to give you an idea of the size of the building, each floor is approximately 29,600 square feet, total building area of 117,800 square feet. This is switching to PB, drawing PB 200. This is a plan of the ground floor plan, which is basically all indoor parking. We have our 2-story lobby at the far end of the courtyard. We have our trash room, bicycle parking, and of course we have our mechanical rooms.
Hold on a second. You
Sure.
said 2-story lobby. Is that 2 stories at the ground floor?
It's a lobby. So these two, these two windows are like clear story windows. So the lobby is 2 stories inside the building. And this is a portico that's basically covering the entrance, the exterior entrance to the lobby. The lobby is all 2-story interior.
Thank you.
Okay. So the bicycle, there was some question about how the bicycles will get into the bicycle area. Over here, we have a little side door. This circular courtyard is right here. I didn't show that on our plan, but this is the circular driveway. There's a door, a little entrance door right off of that courtyard. Bicycles would come in this way and into the bicycle room. Our trash room, we have trash chutes. I'll show you in a few minutes. We have trash chutes from all the residential floors that people will shoot trash down to the trash room. Twice a week, the trash will be, we'll have compactors in this room, And twice a week, the building maintenance will wheel the trash. Well, they could wheel it this way out the overhead doors to a waiting garbage truck, or they could wheel it out this door here. We also have 2 egress stairs to serve the egress requirements for the apartments upstairs. The lobby itself will design eventually a nice little mail room and Amazon locker situation in this area. And we have stairs, open stairs going up to the 2nd floor. So it's a very open, airy lobby. And of course, we have an elevator serving the residential floors upstairs. There was some comment about the requirements for emergency services to aid in any situations upstairs. This elevator will accommodate a standard size stretcher, an ambulance size stretcher, 78-inch stretcher. All the spaces were designed for a 9 by 18 parking space. This town's ordinance requires a 1-foot override past the 18 feet. So we weren't able to accomplish that in all the parking spaces. We were able to accomplish that, if you don't mind, go to my notes, on 46 of the 77 parking spaces. So basically 60% of the parking spaces meet the 19-foot length, whereas all the other parking spaces are the standard 9 by 18-foot length. I should just point out, just to give you a sense of what all that means, a Ford Excursion and a Suburban, they're about 18 foot 8 inches long, and a Audi 4 is a 15 foot 8. So I believe with the 60% 19-foot spaces, I believe we would easily accommodate whatever percentage of large SUVs we might have in the facility, in the parking garage.
And John, just to highlight real quick, so for those parking spaces that don't meet that requirement, we're seeking a design waiver, correct?
Yes, we are, yes. Okay. And then we are planning on initially providing 4 electric car charging stations. And what we do is we provide an electric conduit along the perimeter of the entire parking garage. So as the electric car demand increases, which I'm sure it will, we can easily tap in more car charging stations into that conduit as the demand arises.
Now, the parking spaces will be assigned to each apartment, yes?
Yes, so we have 62 apartments. Each apartment will be assigned 1 spot, at least 1 spot. So 62 of the 77 will be assigned. The remaining will be for those whoever want to take another parking space.
So a renter can specify if he can accommodate his car in an 18-foot space. In other words, it'll be specifically assigned to an apartment that has an 18-foot car.
Yes, yeah, everybody will have an assigned spot. So if an SUV comes in late at night and there won't be a situation where there won't be any 19-foot spaces for that particular tenant.
Would you count the number of pedestrian exits from this garage level?
Sure, we have the 1 exit here, which we're considering our bicycle entrance. We have the lobby entrance, walking through the lobby out this way. And then we have another egress door through this stairwell coming out the side of the building.
And that's adequate for evacuation?
Yes, it is. I should just point out that, you know, hopefully we get planning board approval on the project and we go into our construction drawings that will be submitted to the building department. At that point, we do full building code review of the building. But at this point, I believe that we meet the egress requirements with 3 exits. I'm confident. I know we do. I shouldn't say I believe. I know we do.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, did you say there was 3 exits or 4 exits?
3, I'm sorry. So, well, look, this exit here is an exit, is the stairs from upstairs that exit to the side yard. But there's no door from the parking garage through
I see,
here.
okay, so it's totally enclosed,
Yeah,
okay,
that one's totally closed, whereas this one, because I needed an exit at this end of the building, at this end of the parking garage, we basically allowed for a door to exit through here at the ground
Okay.
floor.
thank you.
Sure. Okay. And then, of course, we have the 2 overhead doors for the cars. We like 2 separate doors. We feel they have a more residential feel. 10-foot doors are much more manageable. They don't break as often. And also, every time you open up a door, you don't lose all the heat and everything. This is a heated garage. In the winter, it's going to be fully sprinkled with NFPA 13 sprinkler system. And if you would like, I can let me proceed to upstairs. So
Please.
this, yeah, sure. This is the, I'm calling it the first floor plan, but for argument's sake, it's really the second floor. We like to just call the parking level the ground floor plan, but really it's 1, 2, 3, 4-story building. We call it ground 1, 2, 3. It just helps us differentiate the parking level and all the luggage that brings from the residential floors. So this is the first residential floor. So when we look at the lobby, this is the area that's open to below. So this is that 2-story lobby with the stair coming down into a lounge area. This would be an open railing. So this is just a very comfortable lounge area. And then off of this, the elevator opening up into a nice elevator lobby here on the first floor. And we have a business center off of that lobby, off of the elevator with windows looking down to the lobby. Business centers are becoming extremely popular with rental units, a lot of people working at home. And we find that people like to just get out of their apartments sometimes, work at the business center. We provide services for them, copiers, things like that. We'll maybe provide a little conference room. And we try to keep it right off the lobby. If a guest comes, a business guest comes, they can just kind of just walk right in there. So looking at the units, so let's zoom in on like a typical 2-bedroom unit. So this would be facing the whole green area in the rear yard. And this is a very typical 2-bedroom that we provide for the building. And it's we call it 2-bedroom split. You walk into a kitchen area with a peninsula to allow bar seating, a very generous living room. We have a balcony off of that. And then we provide a bedroom on each side. The bedroom on this side has its own private bathroom with a shower, big walk-in. This bedroom's a little more modest, a smaller closet, and has a hallway bathroom right across from the other side. This is a great unit. Sometimes people want to share the unit. Sometimes people just want to have a separate little, they'll use this as a study, as a workplace, a little separation. So this is a very popular unit. We do have a line of 3-bedroom units. I'm sorry, we have a line of 3-bedroom units. And again, this is 2 baths. We have a large corner master bedroom with a 4-fixture bathroom, a shower, a very modest third bedroom off of a hallway bathroom, and a larger second bedroom. And all the units will have their own washer dryer, stackable washer dryer. They will all have their own hot water heating, electric hot water heat. We'll provide a gas kitchen. And then each unit has what these are called Magic Pack HVAC units. These are excellent units. These are vertical heating and air conditioning units that have a louver to the outside for fresh air and combustion exhaust. And they have just a little door for service. So when we look at, if you don't mind, I go back to the rendering a minute. You'll see these little louvers that are working with the HVAC unit immediately behind the louver. We paint them the same color as the whatever material they're against, so they become very, we think they become very quiet in the facade. You could see them here. Going back to the typical floor, and then in terms of the trash at the end, towards the end of the, I'm sorry, I'm zooming in and out too much. Towards the end of the corridor here, we have a trash room, and we have 2 trash chutes, one for recyclables and one for general garbage that goes down into that trash room that I mentioned on the ground floor. And the little nooks and crannies, the little dead areas in the knuckles of the building, we offer tenants additional tenant storage if they want.
Before you leave, can you go to the left-hand side of that drawing near the B? Yes, blow that up.
This 2-bedroom unit?
Yeah, that's fine. How do I get out on the balcony?
So you're gonna have to pay extra for a patio door. You caught me red-handed. Good eyes, very good. Thank you for that. Well, I'll speak to management about that. Okay.
I do note that the balconies on that side of the building are inset from the outside wall, whereas the other buildings extend beyond the outside. The other balconies extend beyond the outside wall. Is that a setback issue or a design alternative, or?
Yeah, so that's a very good point you're bringing up. One of the main reasons why we had a resubmission on our drawings is because we had our side walls here and here right on the required 20-foot side yard setback. Your planners, one of the reviewers made a very good comment that when you take into consideration the 18-inch roof overhang, the eave on the roof, we actually protruded into the side yard setback. So the major redesign in the resubmission was to push our 2 side walls and this wall, push it in 18 inches. So the roof overhang respects the 20-foot side yard. So when we go back to your question, that's why these balconies don't go past the exterior wall, whereas the balconies in the front, and I'm sorry, the balconies in the back and the balconies along the courtyard, we have the luxury to be able to extend them past the line of the exterior wall and give us a bigger living room.
So the 2-bedroom units on the east and west side are actually smaller by 160 square feet than the other 2-bedroom units because of the fact that the balcony intrudes to the interior space?
Partially, you know, there's funny geometries going on that's hard to picture. Like for instance, this 2-bedroom, the size is really limited due to the location of the stair, and the location of the stair is basically dictated by the parking spaces down below. So there's a bunch of interrelationships that, that will determine unit sizes. But I can pretty much assure you that this unit will most likely go rent out quicker than one of the units in the back. Corner units are very desirable units in the rental market. Can I continue to the
Any
next page?
questions at this point? I don't see any hands. Go ahead.
Okay, so that's the first residential floor. When we go up to the second residential floor, the units are they're pretty much the same on the second residential floor. I should just point out, so this is the one egress stair at the end of the corridor. This is our corridor, our public corridor, and then we have the other egress stair here. And all the residential floors are sprinkled with the NFPA 13R sprinkler system. Really the difference in the between the second and the third and the first floor is the type of amenities that we provide. And on this floor, we're providing a very generous, almost a 1,400 square foot gym. Sometimes we might subdivide it for a yoga room. That sometimes happens. And then, of course, the dead areas here, here, and here, we allow for tenant storage, which is very popular with the tenants. But the units are all basically the same. When we go up to the third floor, which is the top floor, the only amenities we really have are the storage units, and then this portion that was the gym and the lounge and all of that now becomes 2 apartments in that area.
The elevator is double-headed.
Yes, very, very good point. So when we walk into the lobby, you know, we tried to get, I should just point out that we tried to, our building footprint was extremely constrained by the environmental issues of the property. That dynamic was, you know, I think he explained pretty clearly what was going on there. So our hands were very tied as to how we can juxtapose the building footprint. And we always try to maximize as much parking on the ground within the building as possible. It's just a great, it's a great service. People drive in late at night, they can pull right in, they go right into the elevator. So we didn't have the luxury to kind of make a bigger lobby than what we had. So we had to revert to, you walk in the elevator one way, and then when you come out the other, then when you get to the upper floors, you come out the other way. It's a little more expensive elevator, but it's you know, it just allowed us more room to get parking downstairs. Right, then the third floor plan I walked through. Going to the elevation.
Back up.
Yeah, sure.
Back up. That apartment over on the east side doesn't have a door either to the balcony.
Yes,
On the third floor or the second floor or the first floor.
that's right.
Okay.
There's going to be a price to pay. Most likely, I'm going to pay. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to get a phone call, and it won't be pleasant. So thank you very much for that.
Well, you could provide a rope ladder, I suppose.
I guess. Derek, I might want to end my testimony at this.
Yeah. We will submit, John will submit revised plans with the doors to balconies. Thank you.
Okay,
Well, if the construction department lets you get away with it, I don't.
right, okay.
Any questions from board members or our consultants for the architect?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman?
I'm looking for questions from the board members or the consultant. Yes, Mr. Malinowski.
Just one question. Can you go into a little more detail about the charging stations? I know you said there were going to be conduits going around all the parking areas. How will you determine where they're going to be and when they're going to be added?
Right, so what we do is we run an electrical conduit around the entire, and I'm not an electrical engineer, so I might not answer 100% properly here, but in principle, we run an electrical conduit around the entire perimeter of the garage. Obviously, it gets interrupted at doors, or it goes up and over a door. We run it around. That's connected to the house panel. The house panel, the house electrical panel will be sized for much increased future demand of electric cars. We'll pick 4 cars, however we do it, maybe 2 19-footers, 2 18-footers for now, that will have chargers immediately at C of O, when we open the building. And those are slow charge, those are overnight charger type chargers. And as demand increases, if management starts getting calls for more need for, then we can easily add chargers into that conduit that's around the peripheral of the garage.
Okay, so if somebody's moving in, it's not going to delay. If they move in with an electric car, they're obviously going to want to have their car charged pretty quick. So there's a assigned spot, they can add something in a couple of days. Would that?
Yeah, I mean, they have to call an electrician, get the electrician in, but everything will be sub-metered. So the tenant will be charged back for the charge, and the house panel will be sized large enough, will be oversized initially, with the understanding that there'll be a much larger demand for car charging down the road.
Okay, and then just one, I'm looking at your rendering, and I think it's the first page, PB 100. Am I missing a wall? Is there supposed to be a wall in this grass area right there? That is, it's shown pretty much on grade, but isn't there a wall that runs?
Oh, on the site plan.
Yeah.
Yes, you are absolutely correct. And I'm not sure how to say this, but when we do the renderings, we really focus on the building, and our landscaping, for instance, might not match exactly what's on the landscaping plan. And the wall, you're absolutely correct, that wall is not shown there. And when we have no problems adding it, if that becomes, if you feel it's necessary to add it.
Well, it'd be nice to just see a more accurate depiction of what we'd be looking at. I know scales and everything are tough too, and the angles you're viewing it from.
Yeah. Also, you have to understand that I work at different paces with the civil engineer. We might have done the rendering before, well, that's really an excuse. The bottom line is the wall should be shown. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I see 2 hands. Tom, do you have your hand up?
Do, sir.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Just coming off of Mr. Malinowski's comment about the wall. If that wall was there, would that then show half of that garage level then out obstructed from view?
I really forget exactly how high this wall was. I don't believe it was a very tall wall. I'm a little bit at a loss here, because I don't have his grading plan right at hand here, but I don't believe it was a significant wall by any means. So I don't believe it's going to really affect the overall appearance of the building.
So if there is a wall there, let's say it's argument 1 foot or 2 feet, it might come to the bottom sill of that lower window. Is
Yeah,
that a fair assessment?
yeah, I'm really
Okay.
speaking for dynamic, but yes.
Okay.
We
So that means that
we will,
the building is recessed in the ground in relationship to where that wall is.
No,
yes.
It's not?
I think it's the other way.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, I believe it's elevated.
Yeah, it's the other way. So there will be a little, we'll see a little retaining.
So we're going to see a wall there. Okay.
Yeah,
All
we'll
right.
see a wall here.
Okay. So now, all right. So now it'll be, let's say, a foot further from the bottom of that sill.
Right.
4 feet?
About 5 feet according to the grading plan.
Yeah, it looks like about 5 feet, 4.5 on one corner to 5 feet on the other.
That's pretty significant. That's almost a half a floor.
Yeah, but I should point out though that there are no residential windows down here. I mean, this is, you know, all the residences are up at these 3 floors. So I don't think it has any impact on the quality of the living space for the tenants. It's just a design issue that I have to coordinate with Dynamic, and we certainly will correct our rendering.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Sirocco. I think from a curb appeal, that building would look at least 4 to 5 feet taller,
Yeah,
depending on how much buffer is between that wall and to the actual Valley Road itself. In your opening statement, you
well,
mentioned.
I mean, if you don't mind me just
Go
say
ahead.
one thing, we'll make that a good looking wall. I'll make sure Dynamic and I coordinate what the aesthetics and the landscaping is with that wall. It will be an attractive wall. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Thank you, Mr. Sirocco. In your opening statement, you mentioned that the parking garage is considered the first floor and the living spaces above would be 3 additional floors. So are you saying that is a 4-story building?
Yeah, this is,
Well,
yeah, I'm not
it's-
trying to be, you know,
It's described,
funny about.
John, it's described as 3 stories over parking were compliant with the ordinance.
That's a 4-story building.
Right.
You can say whatever you like, Mr. Orth, but that is a 4-story building. Thank you. Are you going to talk to the height of the overall building, Mr. Sirocco?
Sure.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. So Dynamic established the average grade. I'm not sure if he spoke about that, but he established the civil engineer calculates the average grade for me. And he established that based on his grading plan at 221 feet 7 inches. We take our building height to the midpoint of the roof, and that puts us at, you know, right under the 50 foot. We're at 49 feet 11. And the high point of the roof is above the 50 point, but the measuring to the midpoint, we're at 49.11.
Okay, and this isn't against ordinance RMF 40, so it's residential multifamily 40. Is that the ordinance for this property?
I'm going to defer to Derek on that.
It's the RMF 4 zone. That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. And you're aware that it is a 45-foot maximum building height?
No.
Yeah, I'm a little bit out of a loss here because I thought we were at the required building height of 50 feet. I don't have the civil zoning chart in front of me.
Mr. Orth?
Just checking my notes.
Let me just interject here. There's the ordinance 460-20 that was adopted in July 2020, and that permitted a height up to 50 feet.
Okay, thank you. What was that ordinance?
It is ordinance number 460-20.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Chair, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, put your hand down. Mr. Malinowski, did you have your hand up during the questioning?
No, I was just holding up a 5 to say the wall was going to be about 5 feet, that's all.
Okay, Rich, your turn.
So my question relates back to a comment that we made in our letter, our February 17th letter. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that letter.
Yes, I did, yes.
And so the question is relative to garbage pickup, and maybe you may need your engineer as well to answer part of this question, but it's just really relating to the volume of garbage that would be produced on a weekly basis, and then how long probably the pickup will take relative to ingress and egress of residents in their parking stalls. I don't know if you can answer to that.
Sure. First of all, this will be a private garbage contract. So the amount of pickups can be determined by management. If they feel the need for 3 pickups a week, they will certainly do so. Regarding what happens to people trying to get in and out, I should just reiterate that this turnaround is 24 feet wide. So that will allow a garbage truck or even a moving van, for that sake, for that point, to park here, and cars can still pass and get around the truck. The garbage truck will probably stop here, and the cars can get around with the 24-foot wide. If that answers your question, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the circulation plan relative to that, and the truck, garbage truck being utilized in the circulation plan. I believe it's sheet. It's like the last sheet of the site plan set.
The what, you're a little muffled. I'm sorry. The what?
Yeah, like the last sheet of the site plan set, which is sheet number 21, is the circulation plan. It's basically the vehicle tracking plan.
I'm going to have to defer to Dynamic.
Okay,
I apologize, but I would really not. I would rather not. I would rather have Dynamic answer
okay.
properly to that. Sure.
And we are going to bring back Mr. Jaworski for some additional testimony, and I've taken a note, and he'll address that when he comes back to the board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions, Rich?
I do not. Thank you.
Mr. Richardson?
Yes, you'd mentioned the situation with the parking. I think it was on one of the first plans. And I think the number of 77 spots, it looked to be like that was the number of the indoor parking underneath the building. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then what is the parking that then is outside of the building
Um,
in addition to that?
I don't have the number right.
Okay, you don't need to
So we
count.
have 9, 15, 26, 28.
In addition to the 77. So the 77, because I thought you had testified that that included outside, but that's just
No,
under
that's
the building.
indoor. Yeah, no, that's
Gotcha.
definitely indoor. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Do any other members of the board or staff have questions for the architect?
I have a few questions.
Please, go ahead.
Okay, one question I noticed was that all of the units have balconies except for the 1 and 2 bedroom affordable units. And I was curious as to why not, and could they be accommodated?
Sure. First of all, we do have a market rate, a 1-bedroom market rate that doesn't have a balcony. So I just to clarify your point, but we did see your comment on that, and we appreciate your comment, and we feel that we have a line of 2 bedrooms here that we could 2-bedroom affordables. We have 3 2-bedroom affordables that we could provide a balcony here for those affordables. We were a little reluctant about putting balconies in the knuckles of the building because it just gets a little cramped. If you look at the rendering, it's a tight, because of the environmental issues, we ended up with a tight little corner here, and we were very reluctant to put balconies in this area here, since they'd be, kind of tight quarters. So I'm sorry. But on this 2-bedroom, we would be willing to offer balconies for these affordable units.
And are there any outside amenities for residents who may not have a balcony? Like a seating area or.
Right. I think Dynamic, I think he addressed it, and it's just a very, very tight site. And there's, because of the environmental constraints, I think it's difficult to provide outdoor amenities, but I would like to have Dynamic, when he comes back, address that.
Okay. The next question I had was moving in. So would people who moved in, would they be going through the lobby with their furniture?
Yeah, so that's a good question. There might be, once occupancy is established, full occupancy or 95% of occupancy is established, there might be 1 or 2 move-ins a month for this size building. And that can happen one of 2 ways. A moving van, and they're not tractor trailers. These are typically, for these type of tenants, we see U-Hauls coming into these buildings, and they could easily just parallel park along the traffic circle here or here. And as I said before, cars can still pass. If there's some empty spots, they can park in this area here. And going into the interior, they could, depending on management, they could have to walk all the way around through this lobby door from the garage and into the elevator. Or if they park in those parking spaces that were over here, they might move along, they might walk through the garage and bring it up through the elevator this way. We're obviously going to discourage moving furniture, large pieces of furniture, I should say, through the main lobby. But we do have that back door here.
Okay, the other question I had is somewhat related, which are the entrances or exits, egress, whatever, access points on the east and west facades. And when you look at the site plan that you were showing, the color rendering, it doesn't appear, for example, you leave the door and it doesn't, is that just grass outside the door?
No, there should be a concrete pad here.
Okay, and then, I mean, when you walk further, then you're running into landscaping. So there's no clear path from this exit or access point to the main area.
Correct. So that's something we will address with Dynamic. I think it's a very manageable situation, but I will leave it up to him to address it. But he does recognize the doors.
Yeah.
But he should be showing a pad here and making sure there's a clear walkway, for instance, with the generator and things like that.
Yeah, because that was my second question, was that the generator and the AC unit are in the pathway of the egress. And if the other thing is, and again, perhaps this is a question for Dynamic, which is how are the generator and the HVAC going to be screened?
Sure. So first of all, I should just point out that, well, they could be landscaped, but we're going to have to coordinate the egress from this interior stair. We have to coordinate a path to get you to the emergency vehicles here.
Mm-hmm.
So that has to be, but we do have room, and typically we do landscape around these. But if you don't mind, I should just point out, what these AC units are for.
Mm-hmm.
Each Apartment has their own HVAC unit. They have their own meters. They pay their own. They have complete control, heating, cooling. One unit can be air conditioning going on. Another unit can have heat. This outdoor AC unit is for the common areas.
Okay, got it.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
And then this generator, this is a voluntary generator. This isn't a code required generator. Elite likes to put in a 20 kilowatt generator to basically provide hallway lighting. We like to put outlets in the hallway so that if a tenant, if we, God forbid, we have a terrible storm, power's out for a week or two, tenants can at least make their way through the building. They won't be able to use the elevator, but they'll be able to see their way through the building, and the outlets in the corridor will give them charging stations for their phones.
Okay, and then just one final question I had was if you could go to your renderings and just if you could describe the different materials that you're using. You touched on it, but I would just like a little bit more detail and the colors. If you know, I'm assuming these are representative, but and maybe not exactly the colors that you'll use, but you know, do you intend for there to be the blue, for example?
Yeah. So we use a Hardy Plank product. So we'll be more than happy to submit the color sample. We get the pre-finished, Hardy Plank comes pre-finished. You know, once it's installed, basically you don't have to paint for 20, 30 years, whatever it is. And this is representative, and the name of that color eludes me right now, but we will get that to you. But this is this slate gray type of color. Bluish gray is one of their colors. The brick is not a bright red brick. We like to do a more subdued red brick. That's all throughout the base of the drawings, and these two piers that we feel nicely frame the courtyard. And then we have stone at the base of the piers, and then up on top and on these little bays here, we have Hardy Plank. This is board and batten, vertical board and batten, and we'll be more than happy to give you sample board for all these colors, and an asphalt shingle roof with some copper highlights at the gables.
Okay, those are all the questions I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I have a question, and that is, where on the floor plan can I find a room that contains 62 electric meters, 62 gas meters, and 62 water meters?
Right. So you won't. So what we find, and in this area of Jersey, typically the utility company wants to see the electric meters outside. So we would love to get two banks of meters, one on each side, maybe a bank of meters here and a bank of meters here on the side elevations. The gas meters, again, would be, we like to scatter them around the building as much as we can, so the lines going to the units are as short as possible. So we'll have a group of gas meters probably on the side here and on the side here. The water meters, Dynamic spoke about the hot box, but all the sprinkler control valves and water control RPZs and everything will all be in this mechanical room here.
The reason I ask about the meters is because normally the generator would go very close to the point where electric service enters the building, and it doesn't seem like that would be in the middle of the east front.
Well, we have this mechanical, we have this room here also.
Okay.
So it's until unfortunately, the utility companies don't like to talk to us until they know it's a real project. Once we get through planning board and they know the developer's committed to the project, then the utility company starts talking to us, and we could talk about transformer sizes, type of service, meter locations, and things like that. So it's a little bit of a gray issue at this point.
I would just like to point out that a bank of 20 or 30 or 60 electric and gas meters on the side of the building is rather unsightly and will require some additional screening.
We could address that with landscaping, and we'll show that. I will work with Dynamic to be sure that they address that on their landscaping plan. We will pick a hypothetical location of the meters before we talk to the utility company, but you will understand the intent of our landscaping.
You produced a very nice memo on February 5, talking about access by the fire department. At our last meeting, the board members had a fair discussion about access to the rear of the building for fire equipment. And I think your memo addresses it quite well. Would you like to summarize your memo for the board members? Because I don't think that got into the record at the last hearing.
Sure. So this is a letter addressed February 5th, 2021, regarding fire department access for 621 Valley Road. And basically what I do is summarize the codes that address what fire department access is and isn't required for a building. And basically and this is all NFPA, which is basically the Bible for any fire prevention issues that come up. And NFPA is basically saying, firstly, that a fire truck has to have access within at least 50 feet of the main entrance to the building, which it was. This turnaround will accommodate a fire truck. And if the fire truck parks here, they're within 50 feet of the main entrance to the building. The second part of this NFPA code addresses when a fire truck cannot get around the entire perimeter of the building, and it is not required to get around the perimeter of the building, but it tells you what has to happen. And basically it's saying is that if you don't have fire department access around the entire perimeter of the building, then in a sprinkled building, the maximum length from the fire truck to the furthest point around the back of the building cannot be more than 450 feet. And I believe that's just based on hose length and just walkability for fire department personnel to walk around and carry whatever they have to carry around the building. So we clearly meet the NFPA requirements for fire department access to the building.
I thank you. I found your memo to be very instructive and I intend to frame it.
Very good.
Any other board members have questions for the architect? In that case,
Yes,
yes, Alan.
very quick question. What is the interior size of the elevator?
It's a 35, so we are required in order to meet the 78-inch stretcher requirements. That translates into a 3,500-pound elevator, which is generally how architects specify elevators. I don't know offhand exactly what the interior dimensions are. I don't know, 6 feet, 7 feet. I don't know. All I know is we're required for a 3,500-pound elevator will accommodate a 78-inch stretcher. And this will all be detailed on our construction drawings to the building department.
Okay, because the reason for my question is with such a limited access to the 3 residential floors, if people are going to try to move typically 7-foot long sofas, it's a tight fit into an elevator that only accommodates a 78-inch space. That's all. It looks a little tight, but
Yeah, well, okay, so what we do is we will specify a 9-inch high, a 9-foot high cab, meaning the ceiling height is 9.5,
okay,
9 foot high, so they could stand a lot of
okay, thank you.
furniture's up. And then
That's
I
fine.
would also point out that 3,500 is actually a pretty big elevator. Typically before the ADA, before the stretcher requirements kicked in, a building like this, typically we would see a 2,500-pound elevator. So these are comfortable elevators.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other board members with questions? In that case, Mr. Prelgiver, are you still with us? And do you have any questions for the architect?
Yes, I do. Unless I'm missing something, Mr. Sirachi, there's no exit from the rear of the building, is there?
No. So just looking at a typical floor, as I mentioned before, we have this corridor wrapping around. We have the stairs at the end of at the end of each corridor. And the building code requires maximum travel distance, meaning when you take this unit in the middle, there's a maximum travel distance they're allowed to travel by code, and we meet those requirements. So we had no reason to add another stair in the back. And if we took this stair and put it in the back, then this would be what we call a dead end corridor, which isn't permitted, meaning.
Oh, you stalled.
Right.
I'm sorry, I either froze up or you froze up. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the latter part of your answer about.
Okay. So if we took this stair here and put it over here, then this would be considered a dead end corridor, which isn't permitted by code, meaning if there's a fire right here, this unit would have to walk past the fire to get outside. So we meet the code by providing the 2 stairs at the furthest ends of the corridor.
Well, what are your plans if there's a fire in the front of the building and people have to exit for whatever reason, the back of the building, how would they get out? Wouldn't they be trapped in that building?
So if there's a fire in this unit right here.
And if I could clarify,
Yeah.
one of your exits is preciously close to the entrance. It's on the side, but it's on the right-hand side of your diagram. The exit is sort of contiguous to the entrance. What if there's a fire at the entrance and on the first floor of the garage and people have to get out? How do they get out of this building safely?
Are you talking about this stair?
I'm talking about any stair. Yes,
Oh,
how do they get out? If there's a fire in the front of the building, or let's say there's a fire in the parking garage, which is highly plausible, how do people get out of this building? How do they get out? They can't get out the rear. What if they can't get out the sides? What are they going to do?
Right. So I think maybe the drawings aren't clear, but this stair coming from the upper floors is enclosed in a 2-hour fire rated partition. So this stair is not open to the garage at all. So if there is a fire in the parking garage, this wall will be stable for at least 2 hours. The sprinkler system basically is a method to allow people to safely get out of the building. So between the 2-hour duration of this wall and the fact that the building's fully sprinkled, people will be able to safely get out of this building.
Well, are you going to have fire escapes in the back of the building?
So this corridor, this is a fire rated corridor. All the apartment doors are all self-closing, meaning you can't leave the door open unless you put a chair in front of it. These are all fire rated doors. So this entire corridor is a rated corridor that allows people to safely either go one way or they could go the other way, depending on where the fire is. Once they enter this 2-hour rated fire stair, then they are within a 2-hour fire enclosure until they get to the side
Well,
yard.
unless the fire is in one of the apartments and the door is opened and the fire spreads to the hallway, which is also equally plausible, is it not?
It's possible, but you have to
Objection,
realize.
John, this is another hypothetical after hypothetical after hypothetical.
No, it's really not. It's life. And if I were living in this building, these are very rational questions to ask. They're fire safety issues, and I'm asking them. And I think it's thoroughly warranted. Are there going to be fire escapes in the back of this building, or some means of egress other than these halls?
I think that's a yes, no answer.
No,
No.
no.
And why not? Why wouldn't you have
Uh,
fire escape?
I'd like to stop you there because you're once again trespassing on hypotheticals. He gave you an answer to the question, and that is no. He has testified that it meets all the fire safety codes. I think this is a line of questioning that isn't going to go very far.
Well, I think it's a very legitimate line of questioning, respectfully, Mr. Chairman. And I think cutting it off is a mistake. I think that he's effectively saying there's no egress from the rear of the building. If that's all you care about, that's fine.
I don't think he said that. I think he said there are fire rated corridors.
Yes, but there are fire
Please don't put,
corridors
please.
which can be affected by fires in the apartments that the corridors run through.
I think that is a comment rather than a question on the testimony, and comments are reserved.
What happened?
Comments are reserved for the end of the hearing.
Well, it's not a comment, it's a question. You have to let me, look, you have to be fair enough to let me finish my questions. And you're stopping me, and that's really not fair.
I would like you to ask questions about the testimony that the architect has
Well,
given.
I've got to ask questions that even in the absence of what his testimony dealt with, because I think they're critical. Let me ask you this. What portion of this building is sprinkled, and where is it sprinkled and where is it not?
All the apartments are sprinkled. The
Okay.
corridor is sprinkled. The parking garage is sprinkled. All the spaces are sprinkled.
And what is the roof, if you will, of the parking garage made of? Is it made of fire safety material? How thick is it? Is it different than the construction of the other floors to this building?
Yes, it is different. It has a 2-hour fire rating. It will have 3 layers of sheetrock on the underside of the ceiling that will give a 2-hour fire protection rating between the parking garage and the apartment above. I should just clarify that a 2-hour rating means that assembly, that ceiling assembly has been tested by Underwriter Laboratories to withstand, to remain stable and secure for 2 hours during a fire condition. Those 2 hours have been determined by whoever makes up the codes that is sufficient enough a time to get people out of the building.
What is the material of, besides what you described, what is the structural material for the ceiling of the garage, for the roof of the garage?
Sure. So starting from inside the garage, when you look up, you're going to see 3 layers of sheetrock. Above the 3 layers of sheetrock will be steel beams. Going from column to column, we'll have steel beams. In between those steel beams will be wood trusses. And then above that floor will be a plywood floor, and then all your residential floor finishes. And there'll be insulation in that floor for soundproofing and also for thermal insulation. The garage will only be heated
And how
to
thick will
5
the
degrees.
plywood be and how thick will the sheetrock be?
The plywood will be 3/4, the plywood will be 3/4 of an inch thick. And each of the 3 layers of sheetrock will be 5/8 inch thick.
Will be, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Each of the 3 layers of sheetrock will be 5/8 of an inch thick.
And is that roof the same configuration as the roofs for the other 3 floors?
No, between the residential floors from one apartment up to another apartment, the building code only requires a 1-hour fire rating. So there would only be 1 layer of sheetrock between apartments.
Between apartments, but what about the floors?
Yeah, no, I'm saying between between one apartment and another apartment above, we're required to have a 1-hour rating that will have 1 layer of sheetrock.
So it would only have 1 layer of sheetrock and how many, and 1 layer of plywood?
Yeah, 1 layer of plywood, and we also put gypcrete as a sound insulation.
And they will,
I should just point out that these fire rated assemblies are an integral part of the building code. These assemblies are tested by underwriter laboratories, and they are basically the basis of providing all the fire rated assemblies in buildings that go up
okay.
pretty much everywhere.
I'm not asking that question, but that's fine.
Well, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
everything in context.
Are there garbage chutes in this building?
Yes.
Okay, and where are the garbage chutes located? And is there housing for the garbage chutes, or are they in the halls themselves?
Right. So this is our apartment corridor.
Mhm,
At this end of the corridor, we have a trash room.
mhm.
So then we have 2 trash chutes. These are steel 24-inch diameter trash chutes. They have a sprinkler, and then at each floor, I really didn't show it here, but there's going to be a little pull down door,
Mhm.
a little, whatever it is, 18-inch, 12-inch by 24-inch little door for the recyclables, and at each door, at each opening to the trash chute, there's a sprinkler head at the openings. This enclosure that the trash chutes are located in is a 2-hour enclosure. And years ago, they used to have the trash chutes back in the Bronx when I was growing up. They used to have the trash chutes open to the corridor. We don't do that anymore. We have a trash room before you get to the trash chute.
And approximately how big is that?
Big is the trash room.
Yes, and the chutes.
Yeah, so these are 24-inch diameter chutes, which are standard in the industry for trash chutes.
So how many feet?
Yeah, no, I understand. So this is about 6 feet, maybe 5'6", 6 feet wide.
Mhm.
This is about 30 inches wide, and this is about 8 feet by 5'6", 6 feet.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, sir.
This is about 8 feet by about 5'6".
And is there a sprinkler at that door, at the trash room door?
This room will have a sprinkler head in it,
Okay.
and each little access door to the trash chute will have a sprinkler head.
Okay. And can I ask you, you described the roof, and I guess it's the roof is how many feet above the highest set of apartments? From the rendering, if you can put that up, the roof, the roof extends well above the 4th floor. So,
Right. So this is, I'm taking a stab at it, but this is approximately a 15-foot high rise from the eave or the ceiling of the top floor apartment to the ridge of the roof. It's approximately 15 feet.
I'm sorry, it's approximately how many feet?
Approximately 15 feet.
And-
Here, we're going from 263 to 279. So that's, yeah, 15, 16 feet.
And so how high is each floor?
Um,
From floor to ceiling?
Yeah, we have 9-foot ceiling heights, and we show 11-foot floor to floor, which allows us 2 feet for floor construction, and it gives us a 9-foot finished ceiling. By the time we're all finished, the actual finish, by the time we put the wood flooring down, this and that, the actual finished ceiling is probably like 8'10" inches.
10, okay. So why is the roof so much taller than each of the floors? What's in, and are there sprinklers inside the roof?
So we gave this building a nicely pitched roof. It's an aesthetically driven decision that we made on our part regarding the why is it a pitched roof? We just feel it fits better for the design of the building, and there are no sprinklers in the attic. This is, for all intents and purposes, an attic, and there's no sprinklers up there.
Is there any way for a resident to enter the attic?
So this, I should point out that the building code requires that a maximum area of 3,000 square feet is permitted in the attic before a firewall is put up. So this attic will be subdivided into many fire areas that's not more than 3,000 square feet. I should just make a point of that. Tenants will not be, this attic is fabricated with roof trusses. It's very, very difficult. If you do get up there, it's very difficult to walk up there. There's wood cross beams, webs, trusses, this thing going in a million different directions. It looks like a bowl of spaghetti up there. So the last thing anyone wants to do is kind of go up there, but there will be one hatch, a ladder with a hatch that will be locked, so tenants cannot go up there.
Are there any exits for HVAC, for any release of gas or anything in the attic area?
We put no mechanical equipment whatsoever in the attic. That is something we are permitted to do it. There's codes regarding it. We just totally shy away from it. We don't like it. We do have the plumbing vents. Plumbing vents will pass through the attic. The trash chute has to exhaust to the roof. So those two 24-inch vents will pass through the roof. The elevator shaft has a required override in it that penetrates the attic, but there is no workable active mechanical equipment in the attic.
And will the building use the attics in any way as storage or not?
Absolutely not. As I said before, the wood trusses and the hodgepodge of wood all over the place makes it virtually impossible to make any usable use in that attic.
And Mr. Sirocco, before you said, I thought I heard you to say that the roof was going to be over 50 feet from the bottom of the building. The top of the roof was going to be like something like 53 or 54 feet. Is that correct?
It's going to be about 57, 58 feet. That is the ridge of the roof. But we measure, this town measures building height to the midpoint of the roof.
So are you gonna, well, the midpoint of the roof, I don't know why that's significant. It's the top of the roof that's significant. Are you gonna seek some kind of variance for the height of this building?
Objection, we're not required to seek a variance for the height.
Well, he can answer the question. He's the architect. I don't want you to answer.
The board's planner has already answered this question on page 5 of her report.
I have not heard the answer and I'm asking it.
You can review it from the board's
I don't
planner
want
report.
you to answer it. I want the witness to answer it.
John, if you know
I-
the answer.
I defer to
Mr.
Mr. Orr.
Proudgiver, please, you don't control this meeting. If the attorney for the applicant wants to answer the question, that is his right. Please stick to questioning and not procedural issues.
Well, I think there's a witness. He's got a witness up, sir. I don't agree with you. A witness is supposed to answer the question, not his lawyer. This architect is a smart man. He's an educated man. He understands this building.
I ask you to focus on questions and not procedures.
Well, I'm asking, I want the architect to answer the question.
Can you
I haven't
repeat the
heard an answer
question?
to the question.
Do you mind repeating the question, please?
Are you going to seek a variance for the height of this building?
I defer to Mr. Orth.
So you don't know? Is that fair to say?
No, I'm deferring to Mr. Orth regarding variance issues.
But you're an architect. If the building height by code or
Can we
by,
stop harassing the applicant's witnesses, please?
if the building height by ordinance is 50 feet, isn't it fair to say, Mr. Sirocco, that you're going to have to seek a variance
No,
for the height of this building?
no, Mr. Chairman, this was answered when I asked the question, and our planner answered it. It's 460-20, and if you want to look it up in the code, it is there. I've searched it myself, and it's section 6 and section C.
The definition that we are using for this zone for the height of the roof is the midpoint. You may or may not be interested in quarreling with that, but that's a comment. That's not a question. There is no variance required because the building meets the ordinance definition of height.
That is
Period.
correct, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Are there going to be pets accepted or permitted in this building?
Yes. Elite typically allows small pets in the building, yes.
So you mean dogs and cats?
Yes.
And so where are the dogs and cats going to relieve themselves? And is there an area on this property where they're going to be able to, the residents are going to be able to walk their dogs and cats, or dogs and other pets?
We didn't establish a pet walk in the on the site. That is something I think should be considered. It's an important element in a lot of the projects we do, and we thank you for the comment. As I said before, we're going to work with Dynamic to address outdoor amenity space to the best of our ability, considering the environmental constraints we're dealing with.
And how many?
And that would be,
Sorry, Mr. Pellegrini. Sorry.
that would
Sorry,
be
Mr.
a
Chairman.
important issue.
I'm sorry, Mr. Sirocco. Mr. Chairman, you asked me to advise you when it was 9 p.m. It is now 9 p.m.
Mr. Proudgiver, how many more questions do you have?
I have a fair number, but.
All right, in that case, hold them. We have 17 members of the public who are lined up, also waiting to ask questions. So we're going to take a 5-minute break, be back at 9:05, and you can continue. And I would urge you to keep your list as brief as possible to give the other members of the public a chance. 5-minute break.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, you're good to go.
Mr. Proudgiver, continue.
Mr. Rocco, how close are the generators and how numerous are they to the edge of the property line?
Let me just go back to screen share. Excuse me. The building is 21 feet 6 inches off the side of the property line. The generator will be somewhere in between there. We have to work out with Dynamic the questions that Liz brought up regarding egress path. So the generator will be located probably at least 5 feet away from the building. So probably between, probably about 10 to 15 feet off the property line, but that'll be worked out and Dynamic will have a more detailed plan regarding that.
And how noisy are those generators?
This is a relatively small generator. It's considered like a large residential generator. We checked the decibel levels on it, and when it's in the test mode, which it kicks off once a week for maybe, I don't know, 15-20 minutes just to keep it in good shape. That test level decibel is 55 decibels, which isn't very loud. And when it's in full mode, meaning when there's a blackout and the generator's working real hard, it's at 65 decibels, which is still a pretty reasonable decibel level.
And how many generators are there?
There's just one. It's not serving the whole building. It's not serving elevators. It's basically providing enough power for hallway lights and outlets in the hallways, just to make it easy for the tenants to get around the building in any prolonged blackout.
And if I can ask you, how many elevators are in this building?
One.
Just one. So what happens if there's a handicapped person that needs to use the elevator and someone's moving in? Or there's a delivery, or someone else is using that elevator?
Right. So in the old days, there was something called common courtesy, that the delivery man, if he saw somebody in a wheelchair waiting to get upstairs, would miss a run of the elevator and allow the wheelchair person to use the elevator. So hopefully that's how things will still proceed as we move along.
Did you contemplate having more than one elevator for that reason? If there's an emergency also so for example, if somebody was injured or had a heart attack or had a stroke and the emergency group had to get up there and you had a filled elevator with furniture, wouldn't it take several minutes to unload the elevator to permit the emergency people to get in the elevator to get someone out?
I think if somebody moving furniture was using the elevator and they saw an elevator pull up, I think any normal person would not put a dresser in the elevator at that time.
Right, but what if it was already loaded with material and somebody had, and the emergency personnel had to get in and get somebody out? They couldn't do it, could they? They'd have to use the stairwells then to do it. Isn't that?
Again, you're really talking about hypothetical
I
situations.
don't think that's a hypothetical situation. I think that's why there's usually more than one elevator in a building. But did you contemplate for that very reason having more than one elevator in a building?
Well, first of all, I disagree with you that there's usually more than one elevator in a building. That's not true at all. We've done many buildings with just one elevator, 65 units, 4 stories. It's very common to see one elevator in that type of building scenario.
And if I may ask you, how do you expect most of the people to get up and down from floors 2, 3, and 4? Using the elevator or walking?
Well, people on the first floor a lot of them will just run down the stairs, or they'll run up the stairs. I mean, if they're parked over here, they might just run up, they might go through the store, just run up a flight of stairs. Some people, they might run up 2 sets. Some people feel that's their exercise for the day after sitting in an office all day long. They might run up 3 flights. Other people will walk to the elevator and take the elevator. It's a very, this will not be a very active elevator by any means.
How many people in total does this building, will this building hold?
That's, that's, a- that's a little difficult to predict, and I'm not really prepared to give any somewhat correct answer on that.
Well, how many units per floor are there? For example, on the 4th floor, how many units are there? And what are, how many 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 1 bedroom? On the 4th?
I don't know if you could see the chart here,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
So on the 3rd floor, we have 5 1-bedrooms, 12 2-bedrooms, 2 3-bedrooms, and we have on the affordables 1 1-bedroom and 2 2-bedrooms. So a total of 22 units.
So there are 22 units and 20 units on the other 2 floors. So, I mean, would it be fair to say that this building is going to house at least 80 people?
It could, yes.
Yeah. So, and yet there's only one elevator for 80 people. Is that correct?
We feel very, very comfortable with that, yes.
Okay. All right. Let me see. Fire trucks. You said that the circular driveway in the front of the complex of the building would accommodate a moving truck, you said, and it would accommodate, delivery trucks. But do you know what turning radius a fire truck that could accommodate a 4-story building would need to turn in this environment? How many?
Yeah, sure. I really, I have to defer to Dynamic to address those type of questions.
Dynamic is who?
They're the civil engineer.
I see. So you haven't discussed the use of a fire truck with Dynamic to date?
No, I didn't say that. I just said that any questions regarding drive access, vehicle access, I would like to have Dynamic address it.
Well,
As
are they
they-
going to testify, Mr. Sirocco?
Are they what? I'm sorry.
Dynamic going to testify?
Are they going to, well, they testified previously, and I believe Mr. Orth stated that they will be coming back to testify again.
I see. Okay. So that's not your area of expertise is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know if the town, if the township owns a fire truck to accommodate this type of building at present?
That's beyond the scope of the testimony that the architect has given. Please confine
you're
your
allowed to ask
questions to his testimony.
You're allowed to ask questions beyond the scope. I'm just asking him that question. If he doesn't know, that's fine. He can say so.
I don't know what the town owns and what they don't own. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't have any further questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to open it up to the public. I see 16 people in the audience, 1 reporter, and 15 taxpayers. If you want to ask a question of the architect, please raise your hand.
I don't see any members of the public currently raising their hand. Okay.
There we go. There's one.
I'm assuming this is Mr. Arentowitz. Mr. Arentowitz, you need,
That is correct.
okay.
I want to talk about building height for a minute. I'm well aware of ordinance 460-20, but what I want to clarify is because there's been ranges of heights given tonight, Mr. Architect, and I'd like to know from the average ground level and to the average ground level, what's the maximum height to the peak of the building?
Sure, I lost my screen share. Oh, there we go. Okay. If you just give me a minute, I'll find the drawing. So this is
That's it.
This is PB 300.
Right.
So the high point, the highest ridge is at 279 feet 1 inch, and the average grade is 221 7 inches. So that's approximately 56 feet approximately. To the from the average
I
grade.
think it's 57.6 actually.
Okay, I said approximately, yes.
Well, I'm going to tell you what it is.
Okay.
All right. So what's the, if we take the ground floor, what's the maximum height at the ridge?
That's whatever number you said. It's another 1 inch 7 inches. 1 foot 7 inches.
So that'd make it 59 feet 1 inch. Is that correct?
I'm not really doing the math right now, but that sounds pretty close. Yes.
I think it's pretty close. But I realize that the ordinance 46020 goes to the midpoint. But if you take the ground floor, we exceed the 50 feet. Is that correct?
The building height is measured from the average grade.
That wasn't my question.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. If you take the ground floor and take the midpoint of the roof, what's the height?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't call it building height, but the distance from the ground floor to the midpoint of the roof would be more than 50 feet, but that's not the height of the building. That's just some distance that you're asking me about.
I fully understand that. So if I take the ground floor at 220 and the midpoint of the roof is 271 6 inches based on your diagram, what's that height?
It isn't a height, it's a distance that's 50.
Well, whether it's height or distance, what's the distance then, if you want to call it distance?
Yeah, I really want to call it distance.
Go ahead.
And that distance is 51 feet 6 inches.
Okay, 51 6. And from the ground floor, the high point on the ridge is 59 feet 1 inch. Do you agree with that?
That distance is 59 feet 1 inch. Correct.
So the answer is yes.
Yeah, yes, but I want to call it a distance. Yes, not a
But
height.
that's your term, not mine. Now, on the peaks of these ridges, are there any vents anywhere?
Yes, there are. There are ridge vents.
Where are they on this diagram?
We didn't indicate them on the diagram.
Say that again?
We did not indicate that level of detail on this building elevation.
Are there automated fans at those vents?
No, it'll just be a continuous open ridge vent.
But we don't know where they are.
No, we know we know that they are not going to exceed an elevation of 279 feet 1 inch. That we do know.
How many are there that you're hiding?
So if we go to the roof plan, those ridge vents, I don't know if you could see my cursor,
I
are
can
all
see it.
along the ridge of the roof.
So they go along the edge of the roof. There's nothing at the end,
They go on the ridge of the roof, yes.
but there's nothing at the peaks anywhere.
I'm sorry, the peak is the ridge.
Well, if you call above the, on this diagram, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vents above the windows, there's no vents there.
No, oh no, well, I was addressing what would be the highest vent would be at this ridge, but there would also be smaller, lower ridge vents along all the gables,
Okay.
all these.
And there are no automated fans there at all?
And know what? I'm sorry?
Automated fans, temperature control?
No, there'll be plumbing vents going through. I mentioned the trash chute has to exhaust. I believe it's, yeah, the trash chute has to exhaust to the roof, yes. So there are some mechanicals coming through the roof.
I heard that from your prior testimony. The question I had is, you said there's no mechanicals in the attic, so there's no automated fans for these vents or anything like that. It's strictly flow through, non-automated.
Correct.
Okay. You mentioned on this same diagrams that there's going to be hardy panels and brick and veneer attached. How is that attached?
How is this brick attached to the
Yeah.
building?
Yeah.
So it's a brick veneer. It's a true 4-inch brick veneer. Behind that brick veneer is a wood stud wall, and the brick is attached to the is secured to the wood with anchors every 16 inches vertically and horizontally.
What about the hardy boards? How are they attached? The hardy, it's hardy panel, I guess.
Yeah, the hardy plank. Yeah, that's attached with, you know, I'm not sure if they use nails or screws, but it's fastened through the hardy plank into the plywood.
Do they have any tendency to detach any of the veneers you're putting up there?
Well, if a proper installer is selected and all the requirements in the installation literature from hardy plank is followed properly, that hardy plank will be there for a very long time.
In your professional opinion, what's more difficult to install, the brick veneer or the hardy boards veneer?
What is more difficult to install?
Yeah.
Well, if you ask a mason, he'll probably say the brick is more difficult to install, so I want more money. And if you ask the hardy plank guy, he'll probably say that's more work, so he won't. That's a very odd question, I think.
So in your opinion as an architect, what's more difficult to install?
I really don't understand the question. Difficult to install in terms of
engineering wise.
Engineering wise, we're very comfortable detailing either one on our drawings. It's very, we understand these buildings very well, and we're very comfortable detailing and all these type of materials.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Is that all, Chuck?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Gary Giannakis is up next.
Gary Giannakis, Sterling, New Jersey. I have a question for the architect with the look of this building. Do you feel that it's similar to the other structures in that area of town, or is it very different?
Well, there's many different structures in town. So I think that's very difficult to answer a question like that.
Are there other buildings that look like this in that section of town?
No, there are no buildings that look like this, no.
Thank you.
That's all from Mr. Giannakis. Is that all? Okay. So Jennifer
Jennifer is represented by counsel and
Correct.
she cannot ask questions. She can only make comments at the end of the hearing.
Okay. Any other members of the public?
Apparently, we have no further questions for this witness. Mr. Orth, what do you would like to do next?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We would rest our affirmative testimony for this evening. We would respectfully request that this matter be carried without further notice to the board's next hearing. Regarding scheduling, I do expect and I do hope that we will be able to submit revised civil engineering plans, Mr. Chairman. However, that is somewhat contingent upon the DEP reaction to our freshwater wetlands application. So what I would propose, so as to not waste the board's time, I would request that the application be carried to the board's next meeting date. But in the event that we are delayed with our outside agency approvals, I will alert the board 10 days or 2 weeks prior and just request that the application be carried on the record if necessary.
Okay, the next date would be May 25, which gives you 4 weeks.
Hope springs eternal, Mr. Chairman. So I will.
Before you will leave us, there was some discussion at the last meeting when the engineer was here about that water company hot box. And there's been some discussion back and forth among the consultants about that. And if any of the consultants would like to make a recommendation that you can write down and carry back to the engineer before he submits new drawings, I would appreciate if you get out a pencil and write down their comments so that we don't have to go through a back and forth when he comes next to testify. And if he's going to redo drawings, maybe he will take some of these comments into consideration.
Yes, sir, I'm ready.
Liz, you first.
I think that the board may request that the applicant shield the hot box and probably the transformer in a way that they would require for a generator. You know, maybe it's a mix of landscaping and fencing. It is really up to the board, but I think it sounds to me, based on dynamics and testimony, that the location of the hot box is fixed by the water company, and you know it can't be moved. And so really you want to try to minimize any adverse visual impacts from the roadway of the hot box. So that would be my recommendation to the board, is to request that it be sort of satisfactorily landscaped and shielded to minimize its appearance.
That thing is 6.5 feet tall. That's pretty large.
Mm-hmm.
Rich, do you have anything to add?
I would just agree with Liz. I know that there are some structures similar in the vicinity or in the area, maybe not within the township proper itself, but in other towns around the Long Hill Township. And this particular structure is shiny in nature. It's not muted. So I would totally agree. And I think in our previous letter, our most recent letter, we made mention of that as well, that there would be some strong consideration. I would even add that word to some screening around this. So we would like to, hear from as to what possibilities for screening. I think the board would like to hear that as well. So,
if I may add, it seems to me that I read or heard somewhere that the water company requires that this hot box be located within 100 feet of the water main in the street. It doesn't have to be at the sidewalk. My question is, can your engineer talk to the water company and see if he can push this back into the front lawn as much as 100 feet, put it next to the driveway, it'd be much easier to shield and much less of an eyesore.
Point taken. We will check on that, Mr. Chairman.
And for the board members who want to do due diligence, I suggest that you drive down Mountain Avenue, cross the bridge into Warren, and look to your left. In the first quarter mile after you cross the bridge into Warren, you will see two of these. Draw your own conclusions.
Mr. Chair, is that the one where the building has the power lines, or the house? It's now a church, and there's a power lines through the property?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the second one. The first one is at the camp right across the bridge.
River Bend. Yep.
Take a look at them because it's going to color your understanding of what this is actually going to look like. And I'm sure the engineer, given all these comments, will be able to come up with something grand.
Thank you. They are listening in. So they're hearing this live, and I'm also taking notes.
Oh, good.
So,
So-
Mr.
Do you have
Chairman,
anything else before we see you on the 25th of May?
No, I don't, Mr. Chairman. Does that meeting also start at 7:30?
Yes.
Very good. Nothing further from me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and the public who showed out tonight.
All right, that will conclude. We need a motion to extend the hearing
So moved.
to May 25.
So
Mr.
moved.
File has moved.
I do have
Uh,
one more thing.
got
I
a
don't know if
second?
Carrie, I'm going to extend the board's time of decision through the, let's just say through the end of June, Mr. Chairman.
Fine.
Thank you. You can send that to me, Derek. Thank you.
All right, all in favor of extending this hearing to May 25, raise your hand.
Aye.
And to clarify, there's no further notice required by the applicant.
Agreed. Thank you. Thank you all. And those of you who are here for the hearing are free to leave. The rest of this meeting is a couple of board nits. And we will start with Mr. Jones with a report from the PRISM Committee.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the PRISM Subcommittee, which was agreed to with the referendum, and you directed back in January, has not met, but I have been working to consolidate some information just to remind the members, so that we have two members, that's Deputy Mayor Ray, as well as Mr. File. I think those will still hold true. I don't think there's any change to that. And the one member from PRISM that we will be working with is Mr. Fortianis. I hope I said that right, Fortianis. We will be, what I will do is I will circulate the referendum, highlighting points 5 and point 7, which both talks to the exterior architectural treatment of the buildings as well as the fill. So just to refresh everyone, I have gone through the 11 videos of the meetings to pull out the public comments of what they were looking for. So I will circulate that information as well as what the planning board members had also articulated. Again, just to refresh the subcommittee. I'll defer to you, Mr. Chairman, if you are planning to have any input from the public, but during the subcommittee meetings, I don't think there is a need to have the public there, simply because for the last 11 plus meetings, they were articulating their thoughts, their concerns, their wants for the subcommittee or the treatment of the buildings at that site. I'm hoping that I can get this accomplished in 3 to 4 meetings, but that will be on the nature and the cooperation with both the developer and what we come up with as the members from the planning board. But I do not see this going past 6 meetings. The cadence will be every other week. So this week is a meeting with the planning board. I will look to schedule a meeting with the subcommittee next week. Most likely will be virtual or even conference call, as I don't have access to a Zoom session unless Deborah is able to provide me with a session. Thank you, Deborah. But that's the plan I'm proposing to take forward.
Fine. I have no problems with that. The hearing is concluded. The resolution has been issued. So there is no further need for public input. Period.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the application hearing schedule. Deborah?
So basically, as the board has decided that they would not have a special meeting for the Keel Block subdivision application, at this point, that's the only application waiting in the wings with the Delaware Avenue and Elite application that take us well into the summer, as I'm going to assume. And then we obviously have the master plan. So that's the board's schedule. If the board wishes for me to put out some possible dates to start reviewing the master plan elements again, no, then no. So I'm at a holding pattern until I am so directed from you all as the board.
Is there any possibility that if Elite is not able to come to May 25, that we could get Keel Block in that night?
Yes, but I would have to know 20 days in advance, because even 10 days in advance doesn't give the attorney time to notice. Because everything has to actually be dated and placed 10 days. So if they could, I mean, I can check with Derek, you know.
Yeah, would
by
you
the
please?
second week in May.
Would you please see if he
Sure.
give him 10 days, and then if he's not comfortable coming on May 25, then see if we can put Keel Block in there.
Absolutely.
Because of the fact that we did not know how long the evening's hearing would run, I agreed with Deborah to defer the long overdue and much awaited minutes discussions and approvals, but we'll get to them.
Yes, next meeting I will put, since I'm very behind for the planning board this year. So next meeting I will put January and February and possibly March, and then the following meeting will catch up. So, but I want the board to have a good 2 weeks to look over everything before.
Alan, did you have something?
Nope.
Does anybody else have any old or new business they would like to bring up before we adjourn early? Don't all raise your hands at once. Mr. Malinowski, you are grinning, so why don't you make a motion?
Oh, you're muted.
Trying to unmute. Oh, there we are. Now I'm muted. Motion to end the meeting early.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Hey.
Thank you. Good night.
All right,
Thank
good
you,
night,
everyone.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night, sweetheart. Good night.